Perek Beis, Mishnah Beis. This Mishnah continues on from what we discussed in the previous Mishnah, and that is that originally we said the Trumas Hadeshen, the job in the Beis Hamikdash of the Kohen going up to the Mizbeach and removing the ash from the Mizbeach, was originally done by whoever wanted to. Kol mi sheroitze litrei mes hadeshen, litrei mes hamizbeach, we said Torah, whoever wanted to could. However, if there were more than one Kohen who was interested in doing it, the previous Mishnah told us that there was a running race, and that would determine the winner would be the person who would run up the Mizbeach and reach the 4 amas just before the end of the keves of the ramp going up to the Mizbeach, and he would merit to win Trumas Hadeshen. If it was neck and neck, then they would do some sort of lottery, a go-roll. And we described that in the previous Mishnah, where they would put out their fingers, and they would the person, the Mamuna, would be in charge and would pick a number, and he would go around, and whoever the last one fell on, he would be the winner. Now, the next Mishnah, our Mishnah, Mishnah Beis, tells us that this practice was actually discontinued, i.e., the practice of anyone who wanting to do it could do it, and the practice of running up the Mizbeach, running up towards the Mizbeach, was discontinued because of an incident that took place. So says the Mishnah, Ma'aseh Shahoyu, it once happened, Shahoyu Shnehem Shovin, 2 Kohanim were running up the keves in order to get to win and to do the Trumas Hadeshen. V'oilin ba'kevesh, and they were running up the ramp. V'dochaf echod mehenes chaveiroi, and the two were neck and neck. And one, in order to beat the other person, he pushed him. V'dochaf echod mehenes chavei, pushed his friend. V'nofal v'nishber ragloi, and he fell from the kevesh off onto the ground of the Beis Hamikdash of the Azara, and he broke his leg. V'kivin shero Beis Din shebo l'dei sakana, and when Beis Din saw that this was dangerous, this was coming to danger, Hiskinu, they instituted shelo yehu termin es hamizbeach ele b'payis, that they would not remove the ashes, they wouldn't do Trumas Hadeshen only except by doing a lottery, by doing this pious. And like we described in the previous Mishnah. And interestingly, the article brings from the Meleches Shlomo that the word pious, a lottery, is connected to the word pius. Pius means to appease or to make peace with someone. So this was this was instituted in order to avoid the danger that this incident highlights. Now the Mishnah continues, there were 4 lots that took place in the Beis Hamikdash, v'zeh payis harishon, and this one was the first lot. This was the first lot of the 4. The Mefarshim explain that the person who would win the lot to do the Trumas Hadeshen, not only did he do the Trumas Hadeshen, but he would also he would be Mesader the Ma'arocha, which basically means he would take the 2 Gizrei Eitzim, the 2 pieces of wood, and would place them on top of the Ma'arocha, on top of the Mizbeach. And according to the Rambam, he would also have the privilege of taking the fire pan of the Machtom Melea Eish from the Mizbeach HaChitzon into the Mizbeach HaPnimi, to be makti the Keturas. So that was also part of this first lot. Now, just one observation on this Mishnah, and that is there is an interesting discussion whether or not this lot, this Trumas Hadeshen lottery, took place on Yom Kippur. You see, we've just explained that this was a lottery for the Kohanim to determine who was going to do the Trumas Hadeshen. But of course, on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol was the person doing the avodah. There was no one else. He was the man to do the avodah. So there's no need, presumably, for a lottery. And that indeed is the position of the Baal HaMa'or. The Baal HaMa'or says that this piyus did not take place on Yom Kippur, but it's a reference to all year round in the Beis Hamikdash. The Ramban in Milchamas argues with the Baal HaMa'or, and he says, for 2 reasons, that doesn't sound right. Number one, that the various piyutzim that we say on Yom Kippur make reference to the piyus, to the pious, makes reference to this lottery that took place, and therefore it's unlikely that the piyutzim that we say are wrong. Number one. Number two, he explains each of the 4 cases. So, for example, the first case he says that this lottery took place for the Trumas Hadeshen in the night time still. Somach le daybreak, we said in the previous Mishnah, the Kriyas HaGever. So therefore, True, the Kohen Gadol did all the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur, but that's only the avodas hayom. The avodas halaylo, says the Ramban, that could be done by any Kohen. So he explains why this piyus did take place, in fact, on Yom Kippur. And the Rambam takes a sort of a middle line, but either way, there's a discussion about whether or not this piyus takes place in the Beis Hamikdash. And the Ramban adds, he says, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense. What is this perek doing in Yomah? If this didn't take place on Yom Kippur at all, this is something which is relevant to the rest of the year. This has no bearing to our Masechta. So therefore, for the reasons we mentioned, the Ramban contends that this did take place on Yom Kippur itself. That is the end of Mishnah Beis.